Hi, and welcome to Camp Explore. Thank you all for being with us this afternoon. My name is Alex Giannini, and I'm one of the program managers at the Westport Library. Today, we are so honored to welcome R.L. Stine back to the library. But before we start the show, I have just a couple of real super quick notes. So I'd like to start by thanking Roz and Bud Siegel, whose continuing generosity have made these super cool events possible. Thank you both for this summer. It's been really special. And I'd like to let all of you know that our awesome librarians have created Keep Exploring resource guides so that you can learn more about R.L. Stine, Goosebumps, and you can even get tips for writing your own scary stories. So just click that big green button right down there, and you can take a look at our special page all about Mr. Stine. Now, and this one's really important. If you have a question for R.L., please use the Ask a Question feature below. You just type in your question, and we will do our best to get to it today. Okay, so everybody ready for the main event? Good, me too, because just like all of you, I was a Goosebump kid. And spoiler alert, I am still a Goosebumps kid. When I was your age, my mom would always say that I was easy to find because all she had to do was look behind one of these. I am today, as I get older, I realize that I'm the reader that I am today, and I think I do what I do today because of all those Goosebumps books that I read as a kid. So it's my great honor to welcome a writer who has been scaring people all around the world for a lot of years. So far, he's sold over 400 million books, and those books have been translated into 35 languages, making him one of the best-selling authors in history. So everybody, please join me in welcoming R.L. Stine.
Well, hi, everyone. Hi. Oh, the applause is deafening here. Hi. I'm really happy to be with you today. I'm sorry to say I have a terrible cold today, so don't get too close to the screen, okay? Stay back a little bit. I think it makes me a little scarier, actually. Whenever I talk to kids, I like to start out by reading a poem by another author. This is a poem by Shel Silverstein, and it's called Haunted. And the reason I like to read it is that it's funny and scary at the same time, which is what I try to do with my books. This is Haunted by Shel Silverstein. I dare you all to go into the haunted house on Howlin' Hill, where squiggly things with yellow eyes peek past the wormy windowsill. We'll creep into the moonlit yard, where weeds reach out like fingers, and through the rotted old front door a squeaking on its hinges, down the dark and whispering hall, past the musty study, up the winding staircase, don't step on the step that's bloody, through the secret panel to the bedroom, where we'll slide into the ragged, cobweb, dusty bed 10 people must have died in, and the bats will screech, and the spirits will scream, and the thunder will crash like a horrible dream, and we'll sing with the zombies, and dance with the dead, and howl at the ghost with the axe in his head. And come to think of it, what do you say we go get some ice cream instead? That's Haunted by Shel Silverstein. I'm really sorry I can't see you all. This is very strange. As you can see, I'm home in my apartment in New York City, and this is my office where I work and where I write all the Goosebumps books. I'm happy to say we just had an agreement to write 6 more Goosebumps books to take us up to 2023. So I'm going to be writing these books forever, and I hope you keep enjoying them. And I just want to say Slappy is here. Slappy's always here, right? The evil dummy. I don't know why people like Slappy so much, because he's evil. And you know, Slappy, you don't even look like this anymore. You don't look like yourself in the movie. You don't look like that at all. Anyway, he's here, the evil guy. Whenever I talk in front of an audience, I have a little quiz to see how much you know about Goosebumps, and we'll see if we can do this. I don't know how we're going to do it this way. I have a bunch of titles. Some of them are real Goosebumps titles, and some of them are fake. And you have to tell which is the real one and which is the fake. And when I do this in front of an audience, you just shout out. Everyone just shouts out, real title, fake. so you can shout out at home, and we'll see how you do on this quiz, okay? The first title is The Dummy Meets the Mummy. What do you think? Real or fake? That's a real one. Number 2, Slappy Bar Mitzvah. Fake. You're right. You got it. 3, Son of Slappy. Yep, that's a real one. Number 4, Morons from Mars. That's a fake. But, I think that would be a great Goosebumps book. In fact, I sent that title in to my editors, and I said, I'd like to do a book called Morons from Mars. And this is true. They said, well, you can't do that. You'll offend the morons. And they wouldn't let me do that title. So that's a fake one. Here's one. Dr. Maniac will see you now. What do you think? Real or fake? It's real. Eat cheese and die. That's a trick question. That one's fake. Number 7, It Came From My Nose. Fake. 8, Creature Teacher. What do you think? Real. That's a real one. Number 9, I'll Eat Your Breakfast. Yeah, that's a fake one too, but that's a great title, I think. I think that's scary. I'll Eat Your Breakfast. I think that would be a scary book. Revenge of the Invisible Boy. That was a real one. And the last one is They Call Me the Night Howler. That's the newest book. That's a real one. How did you do on the quiz? I hope you did pretty well. They Call Me the Night Howler is the newest Goosebumps book. And I'm going to read you a couple chapters from that book in a little bit, because I'm very proud of it. I honestly, humbly say, I think it's the best Goosebumps book I've written in years. And I hope you'll try it out, because I'm really proud of that one. I like all the comic book ones. You remember Attack of the Mutant? That one, that's one of my favorite books and one of my favorite Goosebumps TV shows. And all the ones with Dr. Maniac, I like those books too. I have fun writing it. It lets me be funny as well as scary. Speaking of funny, and this has nothing to do with anything, my newest book series is a book series based on the Garbage Pail Kids. I think maybe your parents will remember those cards, those really gross, awful trading cards from the 80s. And Topps is trying to bring them back. And I'm actually doing a book series based on the Garbage Pail Kids. Very funny series. And it comes with cards and everything. And that's what I'm working on today. I'm finishing up the second book in the Garbage Pail series. These awful, awful characters. And I'm having a great time writing it. Anyway, here are some letters. I hope there's some adults watching as well as kids today. I thought you might like to hear some real letters to me. This is one of the nicest things about being R.L. Stine. It's all the incredible mail that I get. And here are some of the real letters that I get from kids. And I'm used to doing this in front of an audience, and it's very strange, and there won't be any reaction. I wish I could hear you at least. Anyway, dear R.L. Stine, I love your books. You're like the scariest man on earth. I want to know everything about you. Do you have hair? Love, Grace. That's a real letter. That's real. Why did she write that? Dear R.L. Stine, I don't know if you remember me or not, but when you came to my school, I'm the one who stepped on your foot. I do remember that, kid. Dear R.L. Stine, you are my second favorite author. That was the whole letter. Nothing else. Talk about keeping you in suspense, right? These are all real. Dear R.L. Stine, I like your older books. You should write a newer book about an older book, only newer. That's a good suggestion, right? I like that one. Dear R.L. Stine, I'm not that smart, but I like your books. Dear R.L. Stine, I'm a big fan of your Fear Street books. I've read 21 of them. I have just one question for you. Why do they end without making sense? That's a nice letter, right? Dear R.L. Stine, I didn't like the ending to Horrorland number 8. Do you have an alternate ending you can send me? What do you think? You think I had an alternate ending? I don't think so. Dear R.L. Stine, in the 18th book of Goosebumps Horrorland, the character you wrote about described me perfectly before I got my haircut. Did you possibly see me somewhere and get the idea for that character from my appearance? That's a weird one, right? That's pretty weird. Dear R.L. Stine, I'm your biggest fan. I read your book so much, I need my parents to escort me to the bathroom. I don't really get that one. I don't know what does that mean? What? And maybe you've heard me read my all-time favorite letter. This is my favorite letter from all the letters I've received from a boy. And he wrote, Dear R.L. Stine, I've read 40 of your books, and I think they're really boring. It's perfect, right? Perfect letter. Anyway, while we're talking today, I thought I would answer some of the questions that I'm asked all the time. Here are some people ask me these questions, and I thought I'd do the most asked questions. And of course, the most asked question is, where do you get your ideas? Everyone wants to know that. I don't really understand it, but everyone, kids, reporters, adults, everyone says, where do you get your ideas? And I have to say that I don't really try to think of ideas anymore. I have a trick, and I don't try to think of it. All I do is try to think of good titles. I just think of titles. I don't try to think of ideas. One day I was walking my dog in Riverside Park, and these words just popped into my head. Say cheese and die. I thought, what? Wait, where did that come from? Say cheese and die. And then I'm walking along and I'm thinking, well, what does that mean? What could that story be? I thought, well, what if there was an evil camera? And what if some kids found the camera? And what if it took pictures of bad things that happened a little bit in the future? And that's how that idea came. It wasn't really an idea. It started with the title. Now I have the next Goosebumps book I'm going to write. I have no idea what the story is going to be. The title is 5th Grade Zombies. It's a good title, right? 5th Grade Zombies. But what will the story be? I know it's going to lead me to a story. Maybe there'll be a school, and a typical normal elementary school, except that one room has zombies. It has a closed door, and they tell all the students, well, don't go by that room. Those are the 5th grade zombies. Maybe that'll be the story. Or maybe some kids will have a zombie club. Or maybe someone will come and hypnotize them into thinking they're zombie. I don't know. I haven't thought about it. I have the title. And that's where most of my books come from. I had once titles like pop into my head. This title, one of my favorites, Little Shop of Hamsters. That's a great title. And then I had to think, well, how do you make hamsters scary? What do? Do you have a giant hamster? Or do you have 1,000 hamsters? And that's really the way I work. I think most authors think of ideas first and they start to write, and later they come up with a title. But all my books start with a title. And when you have something to write in school or something, you might try that. You might try thinking of a title, and that'll lead you to some story ideas. Now, people always ask me, are any of the stories true? Are any of the Goosebumps books based on something true? And actually, I can only think of one. I can just think of one book that was based on something that happened. It happened with my son, Matt, when he was a real little guy. And it was Halloween time. And he was in the living room down on the floor, and I was watching him from the doorway. He was just a little guy. And he tried on a green rubber Frankenstein mask, and he pulled it down over his head, and then he couldn't get it off. And I was watching him from the doorway, and he was tugging and tugging at the mask. And I thought, what a great idea for a story. Wow, I should have helped him, right? I should have helped him take the mask off. Instead, I went and started writing notes, and it became The Haunted Mask. How many of you know that book or have seen that TV show? That's one of my all-time favorites. And it just happened because Matt couldn't get a mask off his face. It's about a girl named Carly Beth who wants to be really scary at Halloween time. And so she puts on the haunted mask. She finds it in a mask store, and it sticks to her face, and it becomes like part of her. She can't get it off. It becomes her skin, this hideous mask. And it starts to turn her evil. She becomes more and more evil. And that all started because of Matt and the rubber Frankenstein mask. Here's another story about Matt. People always ask me, what's the scariest thing that ever happened to you? And I remember the scariest thing that ever happened to me. It was when my son was a little guy. He was real little. And I took him to the New York Automobile Show. And it was like thousands of people and hundreds of cars and big crowd. And I lost him. That was the scariest moment of my life. I couldn't find him. And just that horrible feeling of panic. Terrible. It was terrible. And it only lasted maybe 30 seconds or a minute at most. I couldn't find him. And I'm just terrified. And then finally I spotted him over by a car. And I went running over. I said, Matt, are you okay? And he said, where were you, Dad? I was about to call the manager. See, he's a New York kid. I shouldn't worry about him, right? He was going to call the manager. Anyway, that 1 minute was the scariest moment of my life. People ask me, when did you start to write? How long have you been writing? And maybe some of you are like me. I started writing when I was 9. I was 9 years old. I don't know why I thought it was so interesting, but I found this typewriter up in the attic. How many of you remember what a typewriter is? And I dragged it down to my bedroom, and I would sit for hours writing stories, writing joke books. You know, I always wanted to be funny. I was always funny. And I'd do little joke books and typing, writing. And I don't know why. Why did I love it? I don't know. My parents didn't understand me at all. They didn't understand. My mother would stand outside the door and she'd say, Bob, go outside and play. What's wrong with you? Go outside and play. And I'd say, it's boring out there. Type, and just keep typing. When I was a kid, at the same time, this was very influential on me. There were these really scary comic books called Tales from the Crypt and The Vault of Horror and The Witch's Cauldron. And I loved these comics. They were horrifying, bloody, they were disgusting. And I loved them. And they all had funny twist endings. They were funny and scary at the same time. So you can see they had a big effect on me. And I used to read them at the barber shop. They had a big stack of them at the barber shop. And one day I bought a couple at the drugstore, and I bought these comic books, and my mother stopped me at the door and she said, you can't have these. You can't bring these into the house. I said, why? Why not? She said, it's trash. This is trash. So she wouldn't let me have it. So this is a true story. Every Saturday morning, I used to go get a haircut so that I could read these comics. I had less hair when I was a kid than I do now because I had to go read these comic books. And you can see what a big effect they had on my work because what I do is scary and funny at the same time. Well, I'm going to read now, and then I'll answer your questions. I'll try to answer as many as we can. I'm going to read a couple chapters from the new Goosebumps book called They Call Me the Night Howler. And as I said, I hope you'll try this one because I really think it's the best one I've written in years. And I hope I can read with this cold. I'm really, we'll see if I can croak it out for you. Actually, I'm doing pretty well considering. Anyway, this is about a boy named Mason. He's telling the story. And Mason is a comic book freak. He's sort of like me when I was a kid. He just loves comic books. And he's so excited. He even writes his own comic books, which I tried to do. He draws his own. I used to draw little comics, and I had a character named Super Stooge who would fly headfirst into buildings and things. He was very stupid. And I'd bring my comic books into school and pass them around, and everyone said, "Bob, you can't draw. Your drawings suck. You can't draw at all." And they were right. I looked around. Everyone could draw better than me. I guess that's why I became a writer, because I couldn't draw. Anyway, Mason is that kind of a kid. And he's so excited because his family, they've taken him to the Comic Book Hall of Fame Museum, which has everything about comic books and all the superheroes. And I'm going to read a couple of chapters. I haven't shortened this. I'm going to read a couple of chapters when Mason gets to the museum with his sister. My head started to spin when we stepped into the very first room of the museum. The walls were covered with huge paintings of the greatest comic book heroes of all time. My eyes darted from painting to painting. I didn't know where to begin. The White Raven stood next to Harvey the Horrible. Guppy Girl, with her fins of steel, was riding a tsunami across a raging ocean. The painting of the Flattener was painted by one of my favorite comic book artists, Min Lee. The hero's name is really Henry Punch, but he got that nickname because he leaves his enemies as flat as pancakes. Will I ever be able to draw this well, I thought. That's the question I asked myself as I moved slowly across the room. I wondered if Min Lee or any of the other artists ever gave drawing lessons. Stella, his little sister, bumped me from the side. "Where is Swamp Baby?" she asked. "I love Swamp Baby." "Go away," I said. "This is the best art ever done. Swamp Baby is for little kids." Stella made her pouty face. "I don't care. I think Swamp Baby is cute." She bumped me again. "Why don't you go to the baby room?" I said. "You can find all your favorites there. They have Goo Goo Girl and Captain Diaper Rash." "That sounds like something you'd like." "Be nice to your sister," Dad said. "She just wants to learn." I gritted my teeth. Princess Stella can do no wrong. I trotted away from Stella and led the way into the next room. It was filled with long glass display cases. The cases had superhero costumes inside. I hurried to the first case and lowered my face to the glass. I couldn't believe I was gazing at Lava Lad's actual costume. It looked just like a blazing red volcano was erupting on it. "Hey, this one is funny," Stella said. She had her face pressed against a display case, rubbing her hands all over the glass. "It's a joke, right, Mason?" I walked up to her. "That's not a joke. That's the masked orangutan." She squinted at me. "How can a stupid orangutan be a superhero?" "He's not stupid," I said. "He has the wisdom of 7 humans." I pushed her back. "Get your hands off the glass." "Well, why does he wear that stupid mask?" she asked. "It's not a stupid mask. He wears it so no one can guess his identity." I let out a long sigh. I mean, how could she not know that? I turned to my parents. "Stella is smearing the glass." "Her hands are clean," Dad said. "She won't hurt anything." I had to get away from my sister and my parents. I waited till Stella and my parents had their backs turned, studying the blue and green costume of Sir Seaweed. Then I darted out of the room, through a narrow entrance at the far wall. I found myself in a long, dimly lit hall. A lot of doors were closed along the hall. I didn't see anyone else back here. A wide door at the end of the hall stood partly open, pale blue light glowing behind it. I lowered my head and took off running toward the open door. I was nearly there when I heard footsteps behind me. I spun around. Oh no, Stella came rushing at me. Wait up, Mason, wait up. Nice try, dude. You lose. You're stuck with me. At least she realized she was a pain. I just shook my head and uttered a growl. I turned and led the way through the door. It took a little while for my eyes to adjust to the dim blue light. When I could finally focus, I saw a tall statue in the center of the room. The hero's back was turned. I could only see his long cape. I took 2 steps toward the statue, then I stopped when I heard a loud slam. I spun around. The door banged shut behind us. I blinked to make sure I was seeing right, and then I heard a click as the door locked. I turned to Stella. Hey, what's up with that? I murmured. Chapter 3. I ran to the door, grabbed the knob, pulled. It wouldn't budge. We were locked in. Stella and I stared at each other in silence. We both turned to look at the statue. I made my way around to the front and recognized the character. I gasped. The statue. Hi, am I back?
You are back.
Oh, I'm so sorry. It's getting scary around here. That was terrible. My computer just went off.
Oh,
We're back here.
we're back.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. It was a little bit of drama. We need a drama.
What, did everyone leave or they're still there?
They're still here, edge of their seats.
All right, on with the story.
Great.
Oh, man, that was terrible. I recognized the character. The leopard skin cape and the white boots covered in yellow feathers gave him away. So did the crooked smile on his face and the wild, bug-eyed look in his eyes. This is Dr. Maniac, I told Stella. Well, duh, she said. She pointed to a sign on the wall. It read, Dr. Maniac. I'm not crazy, I'm a maniac. He's weird, Stella said, squinting at the feathery boots. Definitely, I replied. He's one of the weirdest characters ever. Is he good or bad? Bad, I said. I mean, seriously bad. Dr. Maniac is one of the worst supervillains of all time. And no one can ever catch him because he's so totally twisted and unpredictable. I'm not that bad, a deep voice boomed. I uttered a startled cry and nearly jumped out of my shoes. Who said that? I stammered. My voice came out in a tiny squeak. Stella grabbed my arm. A tall man stepped from the shadows. He swept his leopard skin cape around him. He wore steel body armor over a blue and green jumpsuit. It was Dr. Maniac. He glared angrily at Stella and me. I don't like to be bad-mouthed, he said. I don't like people saying nasty things about me. It hurts my feelings. It makes me angrier than a tadpole in a barrel of cheese curd. I swallowed. I wanted to say I'm sorry, but I couldn't get the words out. He was really real. Dr. Maniac was real. Stella took a step forward. My brother was just explaining to me who you are, she said. Who I are? Maniac boomed. Who I are? I'll tell you who I are. I'm the bratwurst in a bowl of baked beans. Does that give you an idea of who I are? Not really, Stella muttered. I've read your graphic novels, I said. I was struggling to say something nice to calm him down. You have a lot of personality. I eat personality for breakfast, he said. Stick out your tongue, fella. I gasped. Huh? My tongue? Why? He took 2 steps toward me. His body armor rattled as he walked. I'm a doctor, aren't I? Stick out your tongue. I hesitated. What would you do if I didn't stick out my tongue? Okay, I stuck out my tongue. Ha ha, made you do it. He pumped his gloved fists in the air as he laughed. Can we go now? Stella asked. Maniac turned to her, his eyes nearly bulging from his head. One blue eye and one brown eye. Go, he boomed, go, before we've even had our tea? Stella and I don't like tea, I said. Neither do I, Maniac cried. So can we go? Stella asked. Her chin was trembling. I could see she was as afraid as I was. Go, Maniac repeated. Don't make me larf. Don't make me larf. Our parents are waiting, I started. How can you leave? The supervillain said. The door is locked. Can you unlock it? I said. Don't make me larf. Don't make me larf, he shouted again, tossing his cape behind him. No, really, my throat suddenly felt tight. My heart was pounding. It was nice meeting you. I've always dreamed about meeting a comic book character in person. Sometimes I even daydream that I'm a superhero. But Stella and I, we have to go. Dr. Maniac rubbed his chin with one gloved hand. He said, actually, there's only one way for you to leave. What's that? I asked. If you want to leave this room, Maniac said, you have to eat my boot. That's the end of chapter 3. Those are 2 chapters from They Call Me the Night Howler, the newest Goosebumps book. And I hope you will all like it. And now here we are. We have a picture. We have everything. We're doing it. And I'm happy to answer your questions.
All right. Let's start with, we've got a bunch of questions. Let's start with a question from Chicken Whisperer. Chicken Whisperer asks, what is your favorite scary movie? Mine is the original It from 1990.
Chicken Whisperer. I should have had that in the book, in this book. That would have been a good title. My all-time favorite scary movie is a really old one. And it's called, what's it called now? I'm going to remember in a minute. It's a film about Dr. Moreau from why is the title skip my head? There are a lot of scary movies that I like. The Shining is one of my favorites. And The Cabin in the Woods, the Joss Whedon film, is a favorite of mine. And those are 2 scary films that I like. And I'm going to think of the real old one in a minute. Island of Lost Souls.
Right. Oh, you're right.
I love this movie. Island of Lost Souls. It's about this doctor on this island who's trying to turn animals into humans. He's operating on them, trying to turn. And this movie was made in 1933. And when it came out, you can still see it. It's everywhere. Island of Lost Souls. And when it came out, people in movie theaters were so horrified by it, they actually threw up in their seats. That's how upset they were by this movie. It's really creepy.
Wow, it's like when the Blair Witch came out in the 90s. It was kind of the same thing.
Yeah, right.
I've got one from Jennifer. She asks, when will the Garbage Pail Kids series be out? I also want to know that.
Oh, nice. September 29. Number 1. Welcome to Smellville.
That's good.
That's the first one. September 29. And you get bonus cards with the book, and it's filled up with very funny art. And I think it's a funny story. They're awful kids, awful. So it's a horrible book.
Juan has a very unfair question. Which is your favorite book that you've ever written?
Oh man, I don't know. Yeah, that's impossible. I love this one that I was just reading you. I'm very happy with that one. And I always say The Haunted Mask, I'm very proud of that book too. That's one that I really enjoy.
You've inspired so many writers during your career, or who are some of the writers that inspire you?
Well, I already talked about the old comic books, the EC comic books from the 50s. They were very influential. When I was 9 years old, my mom dropped me off at I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, in a suburb of Columbus. And she dropped me off at the little library on Main Street. And the librarian was waiting for me. And she said, Bobby, I know you like comic books. I have something else I think you will like. And she took me to a shelf of Ray Bradbury stories. Ray Bradbury is a science fiction writer. And I'm this 9-year-old, 10-year-old kid, and I was blown away by these books. I couldn't believe how brilliant these stories were and beautifully written, and all had great surprise endings. And Ray Bradbury was very, very important to me. And then I went on from him to read all kinds of other science fiction writers. Rod Serling, also very influential on me. I never missed The Twilight Zone. Back when it was on originally, I would watch it every Friday night. And those Twilight Zone stories have stayed in my head and been very important.
Gosh, I love Ray. I actually keep my favorite Ray Bradbury quote on my desk here, and it says,
Yeah.
I've never listened to anyone who criticized my taste in space travel, sideshows, or gorillas. When this occurs, I pack up my dinosaurs and leave the room.
Oh, that's I don't know that quote. I love that. I think that's wonderful. He wrote a non-science fiction book called Dandelion Wine.
Oh, it's beautiful, isn't it?
It makes you cry every page. It's so underrated that people should know this book is amazing. I read it once a year just to remember what good writing is like.
It's a beautiful book, and the follow-up is Farewell Summer is one he wrote years later.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, back. Oh, sorry. All right, this one, Jessica wants to know, do you like or dislike the Goosebumps movie?
I love them. I'm so happy with them. And I feel so lucky. They were good. They were both good movies. They could have been horrible, right? But they weren't. I had very little input in the movies. People don't want the author around. No one asked me anything. And then when I, saw what they did, I read the scripts and everything. And I was so happy. And I loved seeing Jack Black as me. It was great. Jack and I had a great time. We had a great time. Jack and I are like twins, right? Anyway, I love both movies. I wish we'd do a third one, but no one wants to.
Can you talk a little bit about maybe the new Goosebumps TV series? That's a question. And
yeah, I don't know anything about it. I know there's a new Goosebumps TV series they're talking about, and people at Sony who did the Goosebumps movies. But I don't know where it's going to be or who or what it's going to. I have no information about it. I just know there's going to be a new series. So that's exciting, but I wish I knew more.
One question is, do you ever use a ghostwriter, or did you actually write all of these books?
No, I write them all. I'm not smart enough to get a ghostwriter. I don't know. I wish I'd thought of it at some point. No, I've written, I don't know why. How crazy do you have to be? I've written about 150 Goosebumps books. You got to be nuts to write that many books, right? But I wouldn't know what else to do all day. So I'm here writing books.
Cash wants to know, how long did it take to write all the Goosebumps books?
The books usually, here's the thing, I do a complete outline of every book before I write it, chapter by chapter outline of what's going to happen in the book. And in the outline, I put everything, all the action, and some of the dialogue and everything. I have maybe a 20-page outline for the Goosebumps book. Chapter 1, this is what happens. Chapter 2. The outline takes 4 or 5 days to write. But then once I've done that, I know everything that's going to happen in the book. I've done all the hard part. I've done all the thinking. Everyone hates outlines. Everyone hates to outline, but I can't work without it. And once I have my outline, I can write really fast because I know what's going to happen. And then I can write a Goosebumps book in maybe 2 to 3 weeks.
Do you ever find yourself getting away from the outline and putting in stuff that you didn't think would be in there?
Yeah, you do, of course. You think of things while you're going. But it pretty much stay, if the outline has to be approved by my editors. So I know it's good before we start. And so I pretty much do stick to the outline.
Someone has a question about the graphic novel series. Could you talk about the new comic book series?
Yeah, I hope there are 2 of them that are out right now. The series is called Just Beyond. And it's sort of Goosebumps stories. It's for middle grade readers. There are 100 pages of scary fun. The newest one is called The Horror at Happy Landings. And it's about some Martians who accidentally come to Earth, and they're not too happy to be here. It's out now. Just Beyond, the series is. I'm doing 4 of them. The next one is called Welcome to Beast Island, and it's coming out this fall. And I'm having fun. I said I'm a comic book freak. So to be able to write comics is like exciting for me.
They're beautifully illustrated too. The art is amazing.
Yes, it's 2 twin sisters.
Oh, wow.
Out in Seattle who do the art. And they're wonderful. I'm thrilled with it.
Leslie says, "Hi, I love your books. I'm 9 years old from Weston, and I wanted to know how you came up with the idea for the Goosebumps series."
Well, I was trying to think of a good name. My editors, I was already doing a series called Fear Street, and that was for teenagers. And it was teens in terror, and they're killing each other. And my editors wanted to do a younger book series. Nobody had ever done scary books for 7 to 12-year-olds. And I was trying to think of a name. I said, if I can think of a good name for the series, well, let's try a few. I said, we'll try 2 or 3. And one day I was reading TV Guide magazine. And in those days, in the middle of TV Guide, they had all the TV listings. And I was just thumbing through everything on television. And there was a little ad at the bottom of the page. And it said, it's Goosebumps Week on Channel 11. And I just stared at it. There was the name. There it was. And that's how we got Goosebumps, from this little tiny ad. Sorry, I'm losing it here.
We got just 2 more questions and we're all set.
Yeah, good. As many as you have, though. I love this part.
Jessica wants to know, did you like the movies more than the original TV series?
Well, I was very lucky. With both. I love the TV series. And no, I can't really say I had a preference. I'm just so happy that they were good. It was exciting for me when they did the TV series because I didn't write those scripts. And it was exciting to see what happened when other writers would take my stories and go off with them on the TV show. That was fun. That was a lot of fun. I've been very lucky with TV and with the 2 movies. And we have 3 movies based on Fear Street, 3 horror movies for teenagers. And they're all going to be on Netflix next year.
Is there a difference in the way you approach writing?
Sorry, phone keeps ringing. What can you do? What was the question?
Is there a difference in how you approach writing the Fear Street books as opposed to the Goosebumps books?
Oh, definitely. I mean, no one ever dies in Goosebumps. In Fear Street, they're dead all the time. We kill them off. We kill a lot of teenagers. It's horrible, horrible. But no one ever dies in Goosebumps. And, you know, everyone in Goosebumps is 12 years old. They're always 12.
Bella has a great question. Do you believe in ghosts?
I'd love to see a ghost. I never have. People ask me, do you believe in, I've never, what's going on?
I'll call it.
Hold on a minute.
I'll just call it.
Oh, it's, I'm sorry.
That's okay. This is our new virtual tour.
I can't talk now. I'm online. What were we talking about?
Was that the ghost? A ghost. Do you believe in ghosts?
I've never seen one. I'd love to see it. I had a friend who was a horror writer, and she grew up in New Orleans, and said she had a ghost living in her house. It was a boy, and he had like a silver aura around him, and she would see him in the kitchen all the time. And I thought, man, I'd love to see that. I'd love to, but I've never seen a ghost.
Jordana asks, what's the best fan interaction that you've ever had?
Well, just those letters that I wrote to you. I mean, all the fan letters that's the best fan interaction. I love getting out. I wish we were at the library now and I could see you all and meet you all. I love that part of this. That's my favorite part. I always try to get out to book festivals and libraries and schools so I can see my readers. So it's kind of a shame to be shut in here.
What's the strangest thing a fan has had you sign at a book signing?
Well, I've signed. Oh, I know what the strangest thing I ever signed was. It was a potato chip. I signed a kid's potato chip.
How did you sign it?
That's about as low as you can go, right? And it was a Pringles. It was a Pringles. He asked me to sign it, and I did.
Juan wants to know, what was the first Goosebumps book that you wrote?
First one was called Welcome to Dead House. It was about a boy who moved into a new town. And then everywhere he'd go, people would come up to him and say, I used to live in your house. I used to live in your house. Creepy, right?
I love that book.
That one was too scary, though. That was the very first Goosebumps book, Welcome to the Dead House. I think it was too scary for the series. I hadn't really figured out the balance of how to put funny stuff in and make it a little less scary. I always thought that one was a little too scary.
How soon after the first one did the series begin, or did it start as a series?
It started out as what did we sign? We signed up for 4 books.
Wow.
And we 3 of them went out. 3 of them were in the bookstores, and they just sat there. Nobody bought them. It was like nothing. And then suddenly kids discovered them. Some secret kids network, you know, where kids telling kids, and they just took off. It took months. And then suddenly they're all over the world. People were buying these books. And we ended up doing, this is the 28th year, 28 years of this stuff.
Soraya asks, how did you come up with the Night of the Living Dummy? And it came from beneath the sink.
Those are both based on movie titles. I was always looking at real movie titles, trying to figure out what would be funny for Goosebumps. And believe me, when I did Night of the Living Dummy, I had no idea how popular Slappy would become. I had no idea. Just writing about this dummy that comes to life. And now I think I've written 14 books about Slappy. He's like my partly because of the movies, but he's my most favorite, my most popular character. I just finished a Slappy book called I Am Slappy's Friend. And it's about a boy who loves all the horrible stuff that Slappy does. He loves it all, and he encourages Slappy to be evil. That's coming out next year, maybe, or maybe this fall.
And we have, the last question is, what advice would you give for aspiring writers that are watching now?
I never give advice. I don't know. I always think, if you're going to be a writer, they're probably like me when I was a kid. I didn't need anyone to tell me to read or to write. I'd be in there writing all the time. And I think people who are going to be writers, they don't need to be told anything like that. My biggest advice, I think, is have fun with it. Enjoy it. People always say, "Oh, writing is hard work." I hate when authors say that. When people say writing is hard, it's very hard. That's a terrible attitude. I always say writing is fun. It's just fun. You're creating. You're doing this. You're having a great time. And if you sit down and start to write and think, "Wow, this is great. I'm really enjoying this. How much fun is this?" I think you'll do much better.
Well, I think that's the perfect spot to end. That's a great answer to that question.
Excellent. This has been so much fun. I've really enjoyed talking. I wish I could see who was there, but I hope everyone has enjoyed this hour.
Well, I certainly have in the comments. Everyone in the comments have as well. Everybody for joining us. You can watch the replay of this right at this link. And RL, thank you so much, sir, for doing this. It's such an honor to have you. It was so much fun.
Alex, my pleasure. Stay scary, everyone.
And everybody out there, stay scary, stay safe.